Alright, so I never really thought I'd be the kind of person to post on here, but after the last couple months, I just have to get this all out, and honestly, I feel like some of you here will really get what I'm talking about. Maybe this is a little long, but I want to do it justice because if you've ever had a nightmare landlord, you'll understand. For context, this is about my old landlord, an absolute piece of work named Gary, and how I finally got him to pay, literally and figuratively, for treating me like garbage. This is long, but bear with me, because I still can't believe some of this happened. Setup, the place and the problem. So, I moved into this apartment in the middle of January 2022. Not the best time for apartment hunting in upstate New York, but my previous lease ended and I didn't really have a choice. The place itself wasn't anything special, kind of old, a little run down, but it was in my budget and close enough to where I work. I'm a pharmacy tech at a hospital, so I have odd hours and can't afford a long commute. The building was a 3-story walk-up, 6 units, and Gary was the landlord for all of them. The first couple weeks were fine. Nothing fancy, but everything more or less worked. But then, right around the end of January, the heat started acting up. I'd come home from a 12-hour shift and the place would be freezing, like, I could literally see my breath in the living room. I checked the thermostat, which showed 52 degrees Fahrenheit, it was set to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. I tried the radiators, bled them, did all the Googling I could, but it was just cold. Sometimes the heat would kick in for a couple hours, and then it'd go out again. I figured it was an old building thing, but I was seriously shivering at night, sleeping in sweats and a hoodie under 2 blankets. Not ideal. I called Gary and left a voicemail, no answer. Texted him. No reply. I waited a day, then called again, and this time got his voicemail again. I'm patient, I get that he might be busy, so I left another message and said it was really cold and I needed him to come check it out. A couple days later, he texted, "We'll look at it when I get a chance." That was it. Okay, whatever. I bought a little space heater from Walmart to get through the next few days. Didn't want to make a fuss, I just figured he'd swing by soon. Failed attempts, trying to be reasonable. Another week went by. Still no Gary. The heat was now completely off for long stretches, sometimes all night. I'd wake up to my phone saying it was 46 degrees Fahrenheit in the bedroom. I started keeping a record in a notebook, the time, the temp I measured, whether the radiators were warm or cold. I didn't do this for revenge or anything, just because I wanted proof to show Gary in case he tried to say it wasn't that bad. I called again. I tried to be polite, "Hi, Gary, just wanted to check in about the heat. It's getting really cold in here and I'm hoping you can take a look soon." No response for 2 days. When he finally texted back, it was literally just, "Boiler's old, nothing I can do. Wear more layers." That was when I started to get mad. I mean, it was below freezing outside. I put in a complaint through the property management email, which, let's be real, was just Gary's Gmail address. He wrote back, "Not my problem. Heat works when I check it." That was a lie, he had never once stopped by. I started bumping into my neighbors in the hallways asking if their places were cold too. The guy in 2B, Steve, said his heat worked fine, but 1A, Maya, said she was freezing too. She'd also called Gary, and he'd told her the same thing, "Old building, deal with it." She was super polite about it, but you could tell she was pissed. After another week of this, I started to get desperate. My girlfriend, now ex, but that's unrelated, stopped coming over because it was, like a meat locker, in my apartment. I started spending more hours at work just to avoid coming home. I actually Googled, how cold does it have to be before a landlord has to fix it, and found out there are literally laws about this, like, the city code says landlords have to keep apartments at 68 degrees Fahrenheit during the day and at least 62 degrees Fahrenheit at night from October to May. So, again, I tried to be nice. I sent Gary the link to the city code, and asked, "Hey, I think you're supposed to keep it above 68. Is there something we can do?" No answer. I called and left a voicemail and got nothing. At this point, I also started noticing other things wrong with the apartment: cracked outlet covers, the stairwell light was burned out for a month, and the back door, which is supposed to be an emergency exit, had a broken lock. The tipping point was the night it dropped to 10 degrees Fahrenheit outside. I woke up shivering so hard my teeth were chattering. The thermostat said 42 degrees Fahrenheit. I called Gary again and left what I'll admit was an angry voicemail: "This is unacceptable. The heat doesn't work. I need you to fix this or I'm calling the city." He replied, at 2:30 a.m., no less, "Stop harassing me. If you don't like it, move out." Failed attempts, escalation and gaslighting. At this point, I figured I'd try one more time, just so I could say I did everything possible. I emailed Gary a list of the problems: the heat, the broken back door, the stairwell light, plus a couple other small things. I said I'd give him a week to respond before I contacted the city. He wrote back the next day, and it was honestly kind of unhinged. He claimed the heat worked fine, said I was making up problems, and threatened to start the eviction process for being a nuisance. Mind you, I always paid my rent on time and never had a complaint against me. I was so mad I was shaking. I went to talk to Maya again. She said she'd already tried calling the city last year about the heat, but Gary had told the inspector it was a temporary thing and nothing happened. I guess he must have cranked up the boiler that day or something. Steve said his heat was fine, so apparently Gary's old building excuse only applied to some units. I started looking for a new place to live. I hated the idea of moving again, but I couldn't take it anymore. I found a tiny studio about 15 minutes further from the hospital, but at least it had working heat. I gave Gary my 30-day notice, thinking maybe if I left peacefully, he'd at least give back my deposit. Nope. 2 days after I dropped off my notice, he replied, "Fine. But you forfeit your deposit for harassment and damages." What damages? I'd literally never even hung a picture on the wall. I tried to reason with him, but he just sent me a nasty email saying I should count myself lucky he didn't charge for wear and tear. At this point, I realized he was never going to play fair. The plan: time to get organized. I'll admit, I briefly thought about just letting it go. $900, my deposit, is a lot for me, but I was so tired from working constant overtime and dealing with moving. But the more I thought about it, the more furious I got. I had proof that the heat didn't work, dated photos, temperature readings, even a couple short videos where you could see my breath and the thermostat in the same shot. Plus, I had all his texts and emails telling me to just deal with it, and I'd kept note of every time I'd contacted him. I decided if he wasn't going to do the bare minimum, I was going to hold him to every single code. I spent a couple nights after work reading through the city's property maintenance code online. There were so many violations. The broken emergency door, the stairwell light, which is required for safety, cracked outlet covers, fire hazard, peeling paint, loose tiles, the fact that the smoke detector in the hallway had no battery for months. I made a list of every single problem I could think of. I also talked to Maya again. She was moving out at the end of the month too, and she told me Gary had kept her deposit when she lived in another unit in a different building years ago. She was still mad about it. I asked if she'd be willing to sign a written statement about the heat and the back door. She said she would. Steve wasn't interested, his heat worked, and he just wanted to be left alone, but he did say he'd noticed Gary rarely fixed anything. I looked up how to file a complaint with the city housing department. Turns out, you can submit a complaint online and attach photos and videos. So, I put together a Google Drive folder, labeled every file by date, and wrote out a numbered list matching the files to the specific code violations. For good measure, I also sent myself an email with everything attached, just so I'd have a time-stamped copy in case Gary tried to claim I faked the dates later. Execution, reporting every violation, and then some. Here's where things got kind of fun, in a way. I'm not usually a get-even person, but at this point, I was just so sick of being brushed off. I filled out the online complaint form, and got very specific. Unit 2A, no heat for over a month, temperature documented between 42 to 52 degrees Fahrenheit, see attached photos and video. Building-wide safety violations, stairwell light out for over a month, emergency exit door lock broken, smoke detector in hallway has no battery, see attachments. Multiple cracked outlets, fire hazard. Peeling paint, loose bathroom tile. I submitted everything, including a PDF of all my communication with Gary, texts, emails, a log of calls. I also attached Maya's written statement. She did a signed letter and dated it. I included the exact city code numbers for each violation. Maybe a little overkill, but I just wanted to make it impossible to ignore. I got an email back from the city housing inspector the next morning, saying someone would be by to inspect the apartment within a week. They asked if I could be there to let them in, and I made sure to schedule it during a time Gary wouldn't be around. He was always out early on Tuesdays for some reason. I think he did side work as a contractor. The inspector showed up on a Wednesday morning, really nice guy named Mr. Wyatt. I walked him through everything, showed him the freezing thermostat, the broken back door, the dead stairwell light, the outlets, everything. He brought a little infrared thermometer and confirmed the temperature in my living room was 49 degrees Fahrenheit. He took photos of everything, made notes, and said, "Yeah, this is not up to code." He also asked about other units. Maya let him into her apartment too, and her place was even colder. She didn't have a space heater. He wrote a ton of things down. I asked if this meant Gary would actually have to fix stuff, and he said, "Oh, he'll have to, or he's looking at some hefty fines." I couldn't help smiling a bit. I'd done everything by the book, so I didn't feel guilty at all. Aftermath, watching it all play out. About a week later, I got a letter in the mail from the city, confirming that an inspection had taken place and that multiple code violations were found. They didn't give me specifics about Gary's penalty, but they said the landlord was being ordered to fix everything within 30 days or face progressive enforcement action, which apparently means increasing fines, legal action, or even condemnation if it's bad enough. I looked it up. A day or two after that, Gary banged on my door, furious. He was waving the city letter around, yelling that I'd screwed him over, and lied to the government. He said I had no right to let the inspector into the building and that I was ruining his business. I told him calmly that I'd given him every chance to fix things and he chose not to. I actually showed him the notebook with all my calls and texts, not that he cared. He started threatening again, said he'd sue me for defamation and illegal entry, but I just told him to check the lease and the law. I even offered to forward him the city code, which he ignored. Over the next month, a parade of contractors started showing up. I overheard them talking in the hall, "This boiler's ancient, who the hell wires an outlet like this?" And one of them actually asked me, "How long's this been broken?" I just shrugged and said, "A while." Gary had to replace the entire boiler system. The inspector actually red-tagged it, install new emergency lighting, fix the back door, and redo a bunch of wiring. Maya told me they even had to resurface the peeling paint in the halls, because some of it was lead-based. The fire department came by twice to check on smoke detectors and stairwell lighting. I found out from Maya, who ran into Gary in the parking lot, that he'd been hit with nearly $7,000 in fines. The city apparently cited him for every violation, and charged per day for the heat issue. He also had to give Maya her deposit back, plus interest, because the city ruled he'd illegally withheld it. It was in the report. I thought that would be the end of it, but nope. 2 weeks before I was set to move out, I got a certified letter from Gary's lawyer. I'm pretty sure it was just some internet template he filled in, threatening to sue me for damages to reputation and loss of rental income. I showed it to a friend of mine who's an actual lawyer. She laughed and said nothing in the letter was enforceable. I sent Gary a formal response. My lawyer friend helped me draft it, basically saying any further contact should go through her. When I finally moved out, I made sure to take dozens of photos of the apartment, every wall, every floor, every appliance. I did a walkthrough with Maya, who signed a note saying the place was left in clean and undamaged condition. I dropped the keys in Gary's mailbox, and sent him a final email giving my forwarding address. Of course, he never returned my deposit. But I'd already filed a complaint with the city about that, attaching all my photos and Maya's note. A couple weeks later, I got a letter from the city saying Gary had been found in violation of state deposit laws and was ordered to return my deposit, plus a penalty for wrongful withholding. He had 30 days to comply or face a civil suit from the city. It took the full 30 days, but one random Friday afternoon, I got a money order in the mail for $1,175, $900 deposit plus $275 penalty. No note, just the money order. I almost laughed when I saw it. Epilogue, vindication, but not cruelty. So, that's basically it. Gary had to do thousands of dollars in repairs, pay a pile of fines, and return my deposit with extra. Maya got her deposit back, too. The entire building got safer, cleaner, and, finally, warm. I ran into Steve a couple months later at the grocery store. He said Gary was putting the building up for sale because the city was on his ass, and he wanted out. I can't say I blame him, but also, not my problem. Did I go too far? Maybe. I know some people might think it's petty to report every little issue, but honestly, I tried so hard to handle it the nice way. If Gary had just fixed the heat or given back the deposit, none of this would have happened. But he treated everyone like garbage and acted like the rules didn't apply to him. I'm honestly just relieved it's over. My new place is tiny, but it's warm and my landlord is actually responsive. I sleep better. I guess the main thing I learned is to always document everything, and don't let people walk all over you, especially when it's your home. If you made it this far, thanks for reading. If you've ever dealt with a landlord like Gary, you have my sympathy. And if you're in the middle of something like this, keep records, learn your rights, and don't be afraid to use them. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire, or, in this case, fight freezing with city inspectors.